What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Marathon Training 2 series. This is episode 4, and in this episode, we're going to be covering June 8th to June 14th. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. So for the week of June 8th to June 14th, I had 4 runs this week, like every week. And this was a special week because if you remember my last video, I hurt my thumb while cooking dinner almost over a week and a half ago. So this week was more of a trial to see how that was going and then hopefully to ramp it up as the week went on. And that's kind of what we saw. So to go over the runs that we had this week, I had a 5-mile interval run doing 10 segments of 1 minute fast with 2-minute recovery. And then on Thursday, we had a 7-mile jog at marathon pace. That ended up being whatever it ended up being. Saturday was a 3-mile hill run. And then Sunday, June 14th, was a 10-mile race, which just ended up being a 10-mile run that I tried to run like a race. But it's obviously easier said than done when you're the only one running. So let's go ahead and jump on over to my calendar and we'll take a look at some numbers. So here we are at the calendar, and as you can see, here are all the runs that I just mentioned. Here on Tuesday in column C, we had the 5-mile interval run where I ended up doing 5 miles with an average pace of 10.5 minutes a mile rather, with a total time of 52 minutes and 40 seconds. Now this run was the first run that I had done since I hurt my finger, and so I definitely ended up, my definition of hard on this one definitely is not the normal definition of hard that I would normally use. So this was a trial and definitely was if I felt any discomfort in my hand at all, I was definitely going to stop. It ended up feeling pretty okay, and it wasn't even until after the run was over that I've really had any worries at all. So that kind of gave me a lot of confidence going into the rest of the week. And so from there, I tried to push myself back to my normal training standards. So moving ahead to Thursday, 7-mile jog at marathon pace. I just kind of decided to do a 7-mile run, kind of slightly pushing like at 75% instead of full race pace. So I would take my normal 7-mile run pace and then just kind of bump it up just a little bit. And so this ended up reflecting in a 7 miles with a 10-minute and 17-minute per mile pace average for a total time of 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 1 second. This ended up being one of my better, that mid to long range. That 5 miles, I'm usually started to consider 5 miles being relatively short with my Sunday runs usually, being 10 plus miles being my long. This 7-mile distance has been giving me a lot of issues because it's hard to know whether to run it like a shorter pace, like a Monday run, where it's only 4 to 6 miles, or 6 miles is not that much different than 7 miles, but that the Saturday run, then we'll use that for example because that's only 3 miles. So most Saturday runs in the past have been a few miles just to get you out and moving on Saturday. And those being the short ones, I'm able to push myself harder because I know it's pretty short. And then on the Sunday runs, being 10 plus miles, I know I usually need to pace myself a little more because I know I have more miles to go. But that weird middle ground between 6 to 8 or 9 miles is kind of in that middle ground where if you push yourself too hard, you run out of gas. But if you don't push it hard enough, you feel like you could have given more. And so I think this is definitely the best result that I've had on a Thursday run because I think this is one of my best paces and one of my best times to hit 7 miles, and I'm really happy with that. So next, moving on to Saturday, as I mentioned, we had the 3-mile hills run. Again, hills is not necessarily a thing here, especially not where I live. So I ended up to make up for that, I try and push myself even harder. With it being only 3 miles, I can afford to push myself past my comfort zone even further, probably running it at 85 to 90% of my probably max pace that I could run. So this ended up resulting in 3 miles with a 9-minute and 52-minute per mile pace and 29 minutes and 39 seconds total. This is a typical Saturday run for me. Like I mentioned, I try and push myself pretty hard. And so my absolute maximum pace I want to run on these shorter runs is 10 minutes a mile. that I think these go well coupled with my Sunday long runs to kind of create a sort of 2-day interval rather than just a 1-run interval. Saturday is also an interesting thing that I think I want to start doing more on Saturdays. So I do these runs in the morning, typically between 5:30 and 6:30 in the morning is when I'll start. And these Saturday runs especially, I discovered something that I'm really enjoying doing, and I want to continue to do it. And if you follow me on Instagram on my main page, then you will see the results of this, at least from last week, is I ran my 3 miles not to come back home, but to end up downtown. And then I kind of just spent, 20, 30 minutes just walking around, taking pictures. With the early morning, there's no one out, there's no cars, it's very peaceful. And I really enjoy just kind of walking around, taking photos of the downtown area with almost no people in it. And so I think I'm going to try and continue doing that moving forward. With that said, let's move on to Sunday, the one that everyone always looks forward to, the long run. It's listed here as a 10-mile race. Obviously, with everything happening, there are not any organized 10-mile races. I mentioned this last week. So I decided to run it on my own and try and do my best to simulate a race. It basically came down to just being a normal 10-mile run plus trying to push myself pretty hard towards the end to simulate, finishing of a race. Ended up culminating in a 10-mile run with an average pace of 10 minutes and 39 seconds per mile and a total time of 1 hour, 46 minutes and 38 seconds. This is my probably best 10 plus mile run yet, both from pace and total time. I typically try and run my Sunday runs in under 2 hours, depending on the distance. I think in a handful of weeks ago, I can't remember if it was in episode 2 or the episode 1 story so far, that I have a couple of back-to-back weeks where it was a set distance. I think it was 8 to 10 miles, or I think it was 8 miles in under 2 hours. And it was the first time I had run with a goal like that. And so I actually ended up hitting that pretty easily. And so I actually just continued to run and push that to a 10-mile run in under 2 hours. And so I think my next goal when I have one of these kind of runs, like the 10 miles especially, I want to try and run it in under an hour and a half. I'm not sure how close I am to that yet, but considering I've seen my times come down and down and down from 2 hours down to almost 1 hour and 45 minutes, I think that's my next goal. And we'll hopefully hit that over in the next coming weeks. So looking at our weekly totals, we have 25 total miles with an average pace from all of the 4 runs of 10 minutes and 19 seconds per mile, with a total running time of 4 hours and 20 minutes and 58 seconds. These are all yearly highs. It's the most miles I've run. I'm not sure it's necessarily the best pace because of some shorter runs earlier in the year, but it is most definitely the most total time that I've run in the year so far. I think it's only by 21 minutes, but that's still significant. And I think it's only going to continue to go up. And these are, excuse me. And this is also one of the most important stats I'm looking at, not necessarily just the miles. The miles are important because you're getting your body used to running these longer distances, but the time I think is almost more important because then your body is used to just the constant droning and pounding of the total time that you're running. So the 4 hours and 20 minutes is almost the exact time I want to run the marathon. And if you look at the statistics, it's 25 miles when a marathon's only 1.2 miles further. And so I'm actually almost directly on pace to do it, but I just need to do it in one day rather than, across 4 runs. So that's the results from this week. Let's go ahead and jump on ahead and we'll take a look at what we got going next week. So we're going to look ahead now at the June 15th to June 21st week. And for this, it looks thrilling and exciting, and I'm actually very excited for it. I'm going to modify them a bit because I'm noticing that some of these designed runs are probably meant to be more for after a race, because if you remember on Sunday, it was supposed to be a race. So this week, I think is supposed to be both a continuation of mileage, but to take it easier on pace to allow your body to recover. Since I never ran a race, I'm going to probably ignore most of the pace limitations that it offers and probably run them like normal. So taking a look at Tuesday, 7 miles, interval run, 4 sections of 10 minutes fast with 3 minutes recovery in between. This is going to be interesting. The shorter intervals that I ran before, typical to last Tuesday, it was 10 sections of 1 minute fast, 2 minutes off. These longer intervals really get to me more, which I'm assuming, is a good thing, because that means I just need to get better at them. Because those 10-minute intervals of fast, they hit you a lot harder after you stop and recover, and then you have to start again. So I'm looking forward to this one. Also because I can tell from this week that I'm starting to push my mileage up. And so the fact that my Tuesday run is 7 miles is A-okay with me. So after that, we'll have a nice rest day on Wednesday, and then moving ahead to Thursday. It seems like they kind of flip-flopped. Thursday, nice 6-mile easy run, suggested at 11.5 minutes per mile. Like I said, this is probably to recover from your race that you were supposed to run the week before, but since I did not run one, I'm going to completely ignore that, and we'll just run a nice 6 miles at whatever pace my body feels like running. Then once again, nice and reliable, Saturday morning, nice and early, 3 miles, easy run. This one I may actually take pretty easy, just because looking ahead and a sneak preview to Sunday, 14 miles will be the longest run that I've done yet. I think my previous high before this is 12 miles. Don't quote me on that. So this is going to be the longest one I've had so far. And I think that taking it easier on Saturday will do me better in the long run, because typically I've been kind of sore from the day before, which I've actually enjoyed being able to practice that mental fortitude. But with 14 miles, that's a whole nother beast. And I think I'm even going to have to do some extra planning beforehand to actually find a route that goes this long. I've kind of been modifying my long route to kind of fit and mold it to what I need. And if you follow me on my running Instagram account, you can follow all of those routes with me. So this one may require a little extra time and prep to put in to figure out exactly where I need to go to hit 14 miles without having to zigzag through streets like I do sometimes, just trying to make up half a mile or a mile. So I kind of jumped ahead to Sunday. But yeah, like I said, 14-mile run walk. Hopefully don't walk. I think at this point I have a goal to never really need to walk, but it's nice to know that it's in there if I do need it. Well, in under 2.5 hours, I think is probably fair. Looking back at my results from this past week, I did 10 miles in 1 hour and 45 minutes. So in an extra 45 minutes, I need to push myself 4 miles. I think that's about right. I'm not too worried about that. If I prep correctly and take it easier on Saturday, I'm not too worried about hitting that limitation. So that's next week, guys. So we'll throw it back to the desk and we'll wrap this thing up. So that was this week, guys, for my marathon training, and a look ahead to next week. I think this week went very well, all things considered, with this bad boy. It's just actually doing a lot better, almost 2 weeks in to fully healing. I say fully healing, I mean on its journey to fully healing. So coming off of taking an entire week off, I think it went about as well as possible. I've talked about this in the past, but those unexpected weeks off, whether for a reason or just for maybe you just don't realize it, but you just need that week off. Jumping back into it can be very tough, and getting over that barrier can be one of the most important things you can do in your training, because those unexpected weeks off can snowball and turn into 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, a month off, and then all of a sudden you're behind the 8 ball and you're so much further behind than you need to be. So I really focused on this past week to really focus on getting back into those runs and not letting myself have any more extra time than I needed. That's why I even decided to push it just a little bit and run maybe before I would have beforehand, just to make sure that I don't let myself fall back into this complacency of not running and not being focused and committed to doing this. And then looking ahead, this next week looks really fun, actually. I'm starting to really push mileage, as well as, if you were paying attention, you'll notice that this week will actually include my 100th workout for this year's training, and I'm really excited to that, because I never tracked numbers for the first time around. I tracked training days through videos, but I even started doing that late. And so with tracking the workouts this time. I'm really excited to hit 100 because I don't know, it's a fun milestone, and it means that over the course of this year, there's been 100 workouts, and I'm going to try and make it a great one. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up episode 4 for me. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of my runs, or anything special that's happening in your training, or anything that's on your mind. I'd love to hear what you guys have going on. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. I know it really helps me in the long run. And if you like to keep up with this kind of content, I release these every week, so go ahead and smash the subscribe button down below. And stay tuned for when I release new videos. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.